gosh, the volume is coming in. Here we go. Caitlin, say something real quick. Good evening and welcome to another exciting episode of Goth Yearbook After Hours. It is I, your host, as always, Eric, aka the Eric Wynn, and with us, as always, is our hostess with the mostest, Caitlin, aka the Caitlin D. Caitlin, how's it going?
You know, Eric, I'm not feeling super great today, actually. I woke up with the weirdest email in my inbox. For listeners of the show, you may or may not know that my computer, the date and time will frequently reset. It's a refurbished MacBook Pro. And sometimes my internet will go out. And if I want to try to figure out why, I have to go into the date and time. And it resets to December 5th, 2013. And I didn't know what that date was for the longest time. I just assumed it was when whoever owned this computer before me dropped it. And then I looked it up one day, and it's actually the day that Nelson Mandela died. And this morning I woke up and I rolled over and I looked at my phone, and the first thing I saw was an email from the ghost of Nelson Mandela at gmail.com.
Oh,
And
that's great. He could get access to that email.
You know, I usually turn my computer off at night, and I thought I did last night, but I guess I didn't. Here, I'm gonna forward it to you. I want you to read it.
Let me pull this up here. Okay, I got it right here. Let me open up. Dear Caitlin, I hope this email finds you well. It is me, the ghost of Nelson Mandela. I've been trapped in your refurbished MacBook Pro since the date of my death, December 5th, 2013. I can't say too much, but I ended up in your computer because you're just generally pretty underrated as an artist, so I figured no one would notice and I could lay low for a few years. Plus, I think your music is pretty cool. Nelson Mandela, big fan. But that's not the point of this email. The point is, I decided I can't watch this shit show of a timeline anymore, and so I want to give you the opportunity to come back to the right timeline, the one where I died in the 1980s. At the time, it seemed like that was the worst timeline, but now the fate of humanity hangs in the balance. It's up to you to free my spirits from your refurbished MacBook and set me free to undo the damage that has been done. You will need a powerful team of ghost whisperers and some really heightened emotional states. Fear works best. Good luck and don't fuck it up. Love, Nelson Mandela's ghost. Holy shit, Caitlin.
I know. It was pretty upsetting that, that was the first thing I read this morning, and I just thought about it, and it can only really mean one thing. I think we need to have a seance and conjure up some powerful witches and read some scary stories in the dark.
I think you're absolutely right, Caitlin. How do we do that, though? How do we go about doing that?
Do you have a Ouija board or?
Oh, hold on one second. Well, actually, yes, I have one right here.
Oh, thank God. Thank goodness. Okay. Okay, go ahead and
You want me to try to see if I can conjure up some spirits with this thing?
Do a bit of a Ouija. I apologize for the listener at home. It's a windy night here in my bedroom.
Yeah, your window is broken. So
yeah,
that draft.
I think Nelson got pissed and he was just hot, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. More like Nelson Windella, you know what I mean? All right, let's do this, Caitlin.
I'll send my telekinetic powers your way, okay?
I call out to the spirits. Show yourselves. Oh my God, it's moving. Caitlin.
Okay.
What's
the first?
S.
Okay.
H. L. E. Y. It's moving so fast. Ampersand. L. A. Oh my God, I know who it is. They're coming through the Spirit Zoom portal right now. Oh my gosh. It's Ashley and Lauren from Keep It Weird podcast. Oh,
Oh my
Oh.
gosh.
the podcast for all
We've
things
been
strange, unusual,
summoned.
paranormal, supernatural, creepy, sticky, gross, and scary, and everything in between. Oh my gosh, they're here with us this evening, guys. Hello.
Just
Yes, hello,
appeared out
hello.
of nowhere. So happy to be here, though.
That was fucking frightening. Oh my god.
I'm
That
so
was
glad you guys are
intense.
here. Yeah.
Terrifying.
We're here
I
to help, I
also-
think.
I do like that Nelson Mandela's ghost is a fan of RuPaul.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, so
I could tell.
he probably picked it up from
He's
my internet history.
he's been watching over your shoulder.
And don't fuck it up.
He's giving us quite the mission. I mean, it's kind of up to us to
Save
single-handedly.
the world. Or-
This is a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
no pressure. It's
Yeah.
fine. We got this.
One more time. What was his email address?
It was the ghost of Nelson Mandela at gmail.com if listeners at home want to contact him.
I mean, that's my favorite part is the email. It's very nice.
that you can reach out whenever you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And it's to the point. It's an easy email. It's
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was really flattering.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
So I made Eric read it to me.
Oh, that was perfect.
So, for our listeners who are unfamiliar with the Keep It Weird podcast, as Eric said in the beginning, it is the podcast for all things strange, unusual, paranormal, supernatural, creepy, sticky, gross, scary, and everything in between.
Correct.
And it's
Correct.
amazing. So go ahead and listen to that now. And not now. Wait.
Not
Yeah, wait
in
till
this
after
moment.
this, at
Yeah.
least.
Hold on a second.
Wait a sec. Hold your horses. Come
We
back
already
here.
have
Come back
something
here.
going on.
And we thought it would be really fun to do a bit of a crossover with these guys because they do all sorts of spooky stuff. And we wanted to get into the Halloween spirit. And what better way than going back to our, in this,
Childhoods.
yeah,
Yeah.
truly, the time we were all traumatized initially.
100% traumatized. Yes. In the best way.
Yes. So before we start on like a bit of our hard history on Alvin Schwartz and the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book
Saga.
saga, thank you, that's the perfect
Hell
word.
yeah.
I'd love to hear from each one of you your personal relationship with these tales of doom.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna go first. Just
Do it.
because I feel like it. No, I
Such
I
a-
mean I think I was the same as everyone where it was like I became obsessed with it because of the art. I mean, I think everyone did. That was the first thing
Yeah.
that was like, what am I looking at? Who would do this to my young brain? But we had a haunted library in my town. I think
Oh.
I think only the children's section was haunted, but I also never went there as an adult. So maybe the whole place was haunted, and I just know that the children's section was haunted and creepy because I went there as a child. But I, in grade school, checked these books out of that library so many times, probably like 10 times, to the point where my mom was like, you know what? Books are not that expensive. I could just buy these for you. And I was like, I don't want them in my home.
Yeah, I think I had a really similar experience, except I was like, yes, please get me these books.
Immediately.
I eventually did. I think I had 2 copies of each because it was like pages falling out. Like that's
Yeah.
how old and decrepit they became.
And I remember like even like tracing over the drawings and stuff.
Yes.
I did that
I
too,
did
yeah.
that too.
Ah.
I did the tracing
Yeah,
as well because
same
I
here.
was so fascinated by the illustrations. But my story, I happened upon them like when I wasn't supposed to because I'm the youngest of 3. The books were bought for my oldest brother because he was starting to get into all things weird. But I would sneak into his room and steal the books, even though my mom was like, keep them away from Lauren. She's too young. She won't
She's too-
understand.
Mhm.
Her heart can't take it. But I would sneak into his room every day and read through them all the time, especially the one Ashley and I were talking about this book cover and how much we liked it the other day with the giant skull who had the rosy nose, like he had the
Yeah.
sniffles.
Yeah.
I
Like he had a
loved that
cold?
one.
With this little
He had like a
pipe.
little cold.
Yeah.
So
How old were
loved
you?
that one. Oh gosh, young. But
Mhm.
I don't remember. I'm sorry, I cannot remember the age. My childhood is a whole blur, and I kind of think I'm losing my memory, which is worrisome. But I was very young, like old enough to read, obviously, but too
Mhm.
young to be consuming these horrifying stories. And I definitely had some nightmares, but I would go back day after day to read them because I was so fascinated. I couldn't get enough. And I had to look at those creepy skeleton people with like dripping hair
Yeah.
because it was just addicting.
And nothing's changed for any of us as adults.
No,
Right?
turns out.
Not
We're
at all.
still just going back to that trauma trout day after day.
Every day, man.
Yeah.
Eric, how about you?
Very similar story to Lauren, actually. I was also the youngest of three, two older sisters, and who we were all very much like children of the 80s. But my eldest sister, Dana, she had those books. And it's so funny, too, because I think the first one was 1981. Is that correct? So
I think
when
so.
that would have been, she would have been like one, I think, or if not, that was the year she was born. So she had them when she was very young, because I remember, I think I was like 5 or 6. I also don't have like the best memories of my childhood, but I remember being very young when I first like absorbed these, and they were in her room. And like my favorite thing to do, like the one thing I was not allowed to do was like go in their room and like go through their stuff, like play her video games, read her books, blah blah blah. I watch her VHS tapes, but that's like all I did because like she was the oldest sister, so she had like access to like the cooler, more slightly quote unquote adult things. And those books, man, especially the illustrations, as you guys are saying, like that charcoal and ink, it was just like, I remember like they would fuck me up so much, but it was like so addicting. I had to go back, like, and especially since I didn't own them myself and they weren't in my room, I would kind of forget about them. And then when I would stumble upon them again, it would be like I would have to like sit there and like read all three. It would be like, even as a kid, it's not like I had a lot of appointments in life or anything like that, but it was one of those things where it was like, no cartoons the rest of the day. Dad, Mom,
Clear my schedule.
Yeah, clear my schedule. It's going to be a long one. And
You're like lighting a candle and
Yeah.
walking into the closet with your
What-
books.
the
Like Bob Cratchit.
I remember what because there were, by the time I was like, reading these, all three had already been out, and like the third one probably just come out or whatever. And it was like I felt like I'd like missed out already. I was like, oh my gosh, there's 3. Is there more? I was so confused. I was like, it felt like with no internet back then, or at least internet that like was like in a household constantly being used. It was like I wanted to know so much more about like where these stories were coming from, and like I'd hoped. At the time I had no idea, so I just assumed that there was gonna be more of these books that would come out, and they never did, which was almost like heartbreaking.
Huge bummer.
Oh, you know why?
Well, I do know why, for a very
This
spooky
leads into
reason.
my
know why.
Yeah.
This
I
leads
was
into
like, I
my
don't.
So this leads into my history with
Yeah.
these books. So I'll go a little bit into the biography of Alvin. It's because Alvin Schwartz, his life range was April 25th, 1927, and he died March 14th, 1992. So that
Oh.
explains why that happened. And
That'll do it.
that'll
Yep.
do it.
You guys had that like
Uh,
perfect like instinct, like oh.
Hey!
Ooh, I
Hey!
get it. Now I get
That's the worst.
Oh, he's a dead guy.
it.
Alvin,
So-
no.
So while I was a 3rd grader, they had this like reading initiative, and so I kind of found the books like everyone else in my elementary school library, which is a horribly inappropriate place for these books to be, but I
Mhm.
hope they're there forever because they are just here to traumatize children, for generations to come. And I everyone was supposed to, for this class assignment in 3rd grade, choose an author to be like a pen pal to write a letter to, and see if the author responded. And everyone had to choose like books that were at our reading level, and everyone wrote to like Judy Blume and blah blah. And I, of course, was like, I want to write to Alvin Schwartz.
Yes.
And
I
I
love
did.
that.
Everyone in my class got a response from the authors by the end of the year. I never got a response, but then the next year I got the 3rd grade teacher, because they sent obviously the letters to the school, not to like my personal home. She got a letter from Alvin Schwartz's wife apologizing profusely that her husband wasn't able to get back to me because he was dead.
Whoa. Wait, that's crazy. You got a response from the wife. That's
Yeah,
so cool.
And it was that he had died, and I
But
was
he
like,
was dead.
this is a scary story to tell in the dark.
Wait, what year was this?
It was probably this is the big reveal too. So he died. Speaking of fucking birthdays and death days, he died on my mom's birthday in 1992. So the year
Ugh.
that I was in third grade.
Oh dang!
Wow.
So we are connected. He also
You
got
do have a connection to him.
yeah. He also went to Northwestern. I went to Northwestern for 1 year. He got a master's in journalism. I dropped out. So a little bit about him. He's best known for obviously the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series, which have these nightmarish illusions by the illustrator Stephen Gamel. The series was and no, in the 90s, it was the most frequently challenged book for library inclusion.
Oh, interesting.
But libraries, for whatever reason, have continued to refuse. Like, parents have been trying to get the shit out of libraries forever, and libraries are just like, no, we like these
Kids need to
books."
know this.
Yeah.
Kids got to see these pics.
They have to learn early.
Yep.
Yeah. And he also wrote like more stuff for adults. I thought it was really sweet. He wrote this one book called How to Fly a Kite, Catch a Fish, Grow a Flower, and Other Activities for You and Your Child.
What?
What? Why is that so adorable?
I know.
I love to think that one
Alvin, come on.
was also illustrated by Stephen Gamel.
It's like the fish is like fucking rotting on their workbench. Like,
The kite is made of skin.
yeah.
Well, I was thinking of there's that one picture in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark where someone's flying a kite and
Yeah.
it looks like it's somebody's
yeah.
organs like
Yeah.
in the sky. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm imagining.
Shit was fucked up.
And he died of lymphoma, which is the scariest part of his
Ugh.
life.
Mm.
And
Sad.
it was 6 weeks before his 65th birthday, so he was pretty young.
Mhm.
According to bloody-disgusting.com, one of the things about the Scary Stories books that they propose is like the most fascinating thing is that they're not really original stories. Alvin Schwartz was actually a journalist, as I mentioned. He got his master's from Northwestern in journalism, and he published like over 50 books and tons of articles in his lifetime. So he had like really strong research skills, and he was fascinated with folklore and legend, especially like American folklore and legend, but he also included some from around the world. And he would just search for the most frightening stories. And so, of course, I think a lot of people have this thing where they think back on these stories and they'll think of an urban legend and they're like, I don't know if this was a scary story to tell in the dark that I read or if this is an urban legend that I heard. And that's because they're pretty much the same thing. He was pulling them from urban legends and making them kind of appealing to young audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And-
remember there was one about the Wendigo,
Yeah.
Yes, I was just
which
thinking
is
about
a
that.
Native American
Mm-hmm.
lore.
And he did high beams, the one of like flashing the lights into
Yeah.
the
Yup.
car. And I never knew if that was him or I just like heard it at school. I never knew who came up with it first, but
Oh yeah, and I don't know anybody that doesn't check their back seat now before they get in their
Oh,
damn
Yeah.
car.
always.
Thanks to Urban Legends 1998,
Whatever.
7,
Yeah.
The movie.
7,
Yeah.
I think.
the movie.
Yeah.
It might have been
With Jared Leto?
98. Yeah.
98 sounds right, but I'm not sure. Don't
I
quote
check
me.
I check the back seat and under my car
Under the
because
car,
of the
same here.
Achilles
Yeah.
scene.
Same here.
That's
Same
rough.
here.
Ooh.
Do you get down on the ground?
Yes.
I have.
Check under your car every time.
Well, I
Never
usually try to
fails.
check like as I'm approaching, do a little bend, but I've definitely gotten on my knees before.
For sure.
Ay.
I mean, these things are valid. You guys talked about this a little bit, I think, in your Boogeyman episode recently. Just like these fears, they're like, yeah, these urban legends, absolutely. Some of them are just stories. And actually, we're going to go over this in the intro that Alvin Schwartz wrote for the first original Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. But these stories come from somewhere, and
Mhm.
some of it is our imagination, but some of it is that, sometimes there's a BTK in your closet. And,
I was gonna say there's also a documentary called Killer Legends. If you guys have ever seen, it's the same guys that did Cropsy, which is another
Yeah.
really good
Yeah.
documentary. But they cover the origins of the babysitter, calls coming from inside the house,
Oh, okay.
killer clowns,
Ugh.
the razor blades and candy,
Mm.
and the hook, the like psycho killer on Lover's Lane. They cover those 4 urban legends and they go through like the entire
What was it called?
history. Killer Legends.
Gotcha.
Oh, that sounds
Great.
awesome.
I think
And-
it's on Shutter. Shutter.
In the 90s, this is like a little off track, but in the 90s, I remember the big urban legend around my school was like, oh, there was a guy that went to see a movie and he got pricked by a needle, and on the needle it said like, congratulations, you have HIV.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the big
Whoa.
I remember, and not just at my Caitlin, are you saying you heard that too?
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
like totally like something boys would tell girls as like a flirting measure. Ugh.
I heard it like in
It's like
kindergarten,
negging
so it was
and
not like a
also
flirting
you'll
thing.
get
It was
HIV.
like,
Yeah.
but I remember I'd always hear it as like, because there would be a note with it, kind of like, you know, like the infamous one where the guy like he wakes up in the tub full of ice and like they harvested his
Yeah.
organs for the black market. And there's like a note about that. It was like a similar thing where there's always be like a note with the HIV needle, which already like that's so like preposterous. But in every version I always heard it would be like congratulations, which is like, you know, when you get like those like viruses or pop-ups on your phones, like congratulations, you just won like an iPhone, whatever.
Right.
Congratulations, you just got HIV. It's like, oh.
You have HIV now.
Congrats.
It's like so passive aggressive. Like, okay, you're already giving me fucking
Yeah.
HIV. Like,
Yeah.
take it down a notch. So, Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about this illustrator who traumatized all of us?
It's
I-
Satan himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. The devil.
Real quickly, I also want to say, just Caitlin, while it was on my mind, I wrote to, speaking of like when you're a kid and you write to someone, I had to write to one of my classes, I don't remember which one, but I wrote to Dianne Feinstein, who was a senator from California, of course, and was the mayor of San Francisco for the longest time, and she wrote back.
Oh, that's
What?
Yeah.
Aw.
And I didn't even know, like, as a little boy, like, I didn't even, like, I knew my mom had spoken highly of her back then, but, like, I didn't really know who she was, so I remember on the playground, so embarrassing, I remember, like, she wrote back, and so I told my best friend, I was like, yeah, talk about Feinstein, am I right? And to this day, I still remember that. I still remember saying that to him, and, like,
oh my god, we would have been best friends because I would have thought that was fucking hilarious.
all
And I
right.
also would have been pretending to know who she was,
Yeah.
like I just was a few minutes ago.
Stephen Gamel was a illustrator of children's books. He actually had like a long history. He has over 73 books to his name between 1973 and 2013.
Jeez.
He's actually still alive. I think he just retired in 2013. And he has won like 4 different awards in his time. None for the scary stories, unfortunately, which is kind of like, if he did, it was like after the fact and like an online one, like bloodydisgusting.com's like
Yeah.
best illustrators of all time. But he won awards for books including Song and Dance Man and Where the Buffaloes Begin, which you guys can't see it, but right now I'm kind of showing it off in the YouTube live stream. The illustrations specifically in that book are heavily influenced by Native American culture, which you see a little bit of, you know, in the scary story books that we were just kind of talking about. Like, he uses the charcoal and ink style in that book. You guys will have to look it up sometime. It's really incredible because it's actually, while in those books that we read that we were so scarred by, they're so like vicious and gross looking. In those books, it's actually like, it feels very much like a loving tribute, you know? And it's just so interesting how he was able to make all these images that are so, they're dripping and they're sharp at the same time. And you can tell me pretty much any story, any kid between a certain age group, you tell them that story and they instantly can conjure up like the image Harold.
Oh,
Who-
because we spent hours fucking staring at it
Mhm.
and studying it.
Yeah,
And I
and-
also
Precisely.
don't know too many illustrators. I mean, I don't know any illustrators by name, but you know what I mean, that can draw smoke
yeah.
Yeah.
the way that he did.
Well, he
I agree.
so he used not just ink but charcoal, and that's how he would get like a little bit of like that like billowy.
Whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. And he is completely self-taught. He didn't go to school or anything. He just
Wow.
like
Wow.
the man is just like incredible.
He's so cool.
Yeah.
I like
And
him a lot.
what's funny is so I looked up the other book, so that Where the Buffalo Begin, you look at that one and it looks like a more straightforward version of the illustrations he does from the scary story books. But then you go and look at this one, the other one I told you about that he won an award for, called Song and Dance Man. And knowing like what he is capable of on like the traumatic fucked up end of the spectrum, and then seeing like this like story of this like man dancing around looking very much like a story, you're like, I know it's supposed to be a children's book that's very happy, but you're like, it's fucked up. Like in retrospect, you're looking at these illustrations and you're like, it's supposed to be this man who's very happy, but it knowing what he's capable of, you're like, Jesus, like what's wrong with this guy that's dancing around?
Did he didn't illustrate when they re-released
No,
Scary Stories
no.
7 years ago,
Yeah, I
8 years
don't
ago?
have the link anymore pulled up, but that gentleman whose name I don't have pulled up now. I looked at some of them, and it's not even remotely the same thing. It's all cartoony.
No.
They tone it down, so everything's like rounded, polished, like and Just Delicious, like the infamous lure one. Like you see like this kind of rotund man with just kind of like smiling all greedily. It's like none of it.
Not the same.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah.
I worked at Barnes and Noble at the time, so we were like kind of the first. I mean, not the first people, but we always get the books a week or so before they come out. So we were in the back looking at them because I was so excited because I was like, they're re-releasing them.
Right.
But yeah, it was just not scary at all. And the problem is too is that a lot of the not a lot of the stories, but a good portion of the stories aren't necessarily terrifying because they are just sort of like the retold urban legends. But with the illustrations on top of it, it's
Yeah.
horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
When the illustrations aren't scary, it's like, I don't know. I mean,
I'm not into this.
The
I think
illustrations
they're weaker.
are
these
absolutely.
days.
I don't think I've ever brought this book series up with someone, or even some of these urban legends with people, without that being like the first comment of like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because they really put you in the mood. And I was just actually wondering, like, while we're we're in the scope of this episode, like talking about timelines a little bit, like what, like, I wonder if like Goosebumps and this series and like Are You Afraid of the Dark, if those just like didn't exist, like would we have all the fucking true crime podcasts and shit and
that's
like
very interesting.
horror
It's
movies that
true.
we have now? Like, would
That
it be
is such a good
thing?
question.
Even-
I feel like
also
those shows
wonder-
formed us.
Yeah,
Those
Yeah.
shows
so.
and books.
So impressionable too at that age.
100%.
I also wonder what the connection is because I have a lot of friends that love true crime but hate horror movies.
Same
Yeah.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, that like love horror movies and hate true crime. And I'm like, so what about those of us that love both? Like,
Yeah.
what is the disconnect there?
Right.
You're pan traumatized.
Yeah.
I will.
I experienced trauma
take
on
that
all
title.
levels.
I want to say too, not just like scary, but I feel like he also knew how to draw a very lonely, sad feeling as well. Like the cover of the second book, more scary stories to tell, where it's like the two people holding hands in the forest. It's scary,
Walking.
but there's also something
Mhm.
very like sad about it. And the very first story in that book series is called Something Went Wrong, and it's the man like at the telephone, where like he realizes that he died and he's a ghost walking around and everyone's seeing him and freaking out because he tries to call his wife and they're like, you died yesterday, basically. And shows like the illustration is a man at like the payphone. And there's just like, even though it's like kind of supposed to be scary and smoky, it also has like a very lonely fucking feeling of just like being a million miles away from everyone.
It really
Yeah.
like perfectly defines like American Gothic
Yeah.
for our generation, I think,
Yeah.
because it's so Americana. Like all these stories are so like they're like about remote farms and these people who are sort of, like they're classic, they're a little bit timeless, but they're also clearly, pre 2000s. But they're like, and they're so dark. I actually was wondering, so actually I have two things. One is that the illustrator, one thing I was surprised about when I was researching was that neither Alvin Schwartz or Stephen Gamel had like particularly, like they had interesting lives and that they were productive and that they, were accomplished and whatever, but there was very little about them personally. And normally with authors like this, I don't know, I feel like you just find a little bit of juice and a little bit like something
Right.
going on in the background where like they're a little bit fucking weird or
Like
something.
Like Stephen
Yeah.
King, like he wears on his sleeves like his addictions and his this and his that. You're right. These guys were not like that whatsoever.
Totally different generation though. I get
Sure,
that.
yeah.
And one was like, he was like in the Navy. Alvin Schwartz was like in the Navy before he became a writer, and so maybe he's a little bit more hush hush about his problems. But
Well, that's probably that. He was a kid growing up. Back then, like all they had when they didn't really have, like, they weren't watching TV the way that we were, or we're not, they didn't consume media the way that our generation does. So all they had really was like the stories that they told each other and that their parents told. And then being in the Navy, I mean, I'm sure like back then that was a lot of swapping of like, old wives' tales and things like that.
Yeah. But not anything particularly noteworthy in either one of their bios as far as like his mother was murdered by his father with a shotgun, which is
I was
literally
just gonna say, I would expect like a little trauma, like a little history
Well-
of something to pop up, and just for them not to be on the map is interesting.
Yeah, that's like exactly Chuck Palahniuk's backstory. Is
Yeah.
like his fucking dad shot his mother with a shotgun. So it's like, oh, no wonder you write fucking Fight Club and
Yeah,
a
we
bunch
get
of
it.
Yeah, he has like a very
horrific shit.
low opinion of like
understand.
humanity, and it shows through his writing. But you
Or,
would
like-
think that for Stephen Gamel, like
Yeah,
which actually that's the most frightening thing, because if these are the images that are going through his fucking head at night when he's just like laying there, like imagine being his wife and he's just like, the stew was so good tonight, honey. All right, good night. And like that this is like what's going in his mind, like murder, blood,
Toes.
and he's just like,
Toes.
There's
Yeah.
toes
Like-
in the stew.
It's-
it's creepy.
if true crime though has taught me anything, it's usually the people that are like the nerdiest about horror fic and just like stuff like that are actually like the nicest people and
Yeah.
just like sweethearts. It's the people that like everything on the outside is sunshine.
yeah,
And then
We
Yes,
go
you
to
have be
church
worried.
every
it's
Sunday.
the people drawing.
All I do is
Don't trust
pray and
you.
smile.
uh-huh.
You're like, no, I don't trust this at all.
they-
And until I chop up my entire family
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like dig them a shallow grave.
Excellent.
So on that note,
On that
Uh,
happy note.
Eric, do you want to read the intro that Alvin Schwartz wrote? Just a brief excerpt from it for the original
Yeah.
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark before we tell some of these scary stories to tell in the dark.
Ooh. This is from the intro from the first book. Telling scary stories is something people have done for thousands of years. For most of us, like being scared in that way. Since there isn't any danger, we think it is fun. There are a great many scary stories to tell. There are ghost stories. There are tales of witches, devils, boogeymen, zombies, and vampires. There are tales of monstrous creatures and other dangers. There are even stories that make us laugh at all the scariness. Some of these tales are very old, and they are told around the world, and most have the same origins. They are based on things that people saw or hear or experienced, or thought that they did. And the best time to tell these stories is at night, in the dark and the gloom. It is easy for someone listening to imagine all sorts of strange and scary things. So I highly suggest for anyone to go read like the full, it's a couple pages, but the full intro, it's like basically a love letter to the act of sharing stories in general. And he even like gives like directions on like how to tell a story. He's like, you should read it very slowly and thoughtfully and raise your voice like on these kinds of words. Like it's he clearly just had such a passion for like collecting these kinds of things, which I find very remarkably endearing.
Yeah. I loved that intro. That just got me so excited. I just want to sit in a dark room and read all of them over again now.
Well, we're about to do
Yeah.
a little bit of that.
Yes.
Turn the lights down low. If you're listening at home, turn your lights off. Lie in the middle of your floor in the center of a pentagram drawn with salt.
Mm.
And buckle up because we're about to get a little bit spooky up in here. First of all, page 2, Eric sent me this, and I had somehow kind of skipped over it when I was rereading some of these stories. But the dedication that Alvin Schwartz, who died on my mother's birthday, and apparently there's other weird birthday stuff with the ghosts. Now, he dedicated this book, it just says, for Dinah, who is that is the name of the cat that died on my birthday in May of this year.
Whoa.
When I
Uh,
came on the show,
Yeah, that's
I
right. Yeah,
remember
you were
that.
on. You were on a week later. That's right. Yeah,
yeah,
or like
Yep.
like 5 days later. Yeah.
I remember listening to that episode that Ashley was on and hearing you talk about Dinah. So now I'm really like, wait, you have some connections. Something's going on.
It's fucking weird. And he also put there also in the illustration, it's weird. It's like the wheelchair, and then there's a blue jay. And the day that Dinah died, I I would like take her outside in the morning and like, enjoy the grass and sunshine with her a little bit. And I knew I was gonna have to put her down. And like, uh, this blue jay came and sat in the yard, and it like sat like right next to us, and she was like looking at the blue jay. It was so weird because the blue jay was like not afraid. It was just very strange. And for weeks afterwards, a blue jay would come to my yard and like straight up watch me through my kitchen window, like day
Whoa.
after day. And like come, and if I like saw it in a tree, it could be like hi, and it would like come fly into my yard and just like look at me and just like hang out with me. And I was like, oh my god, it's Dinah. Dinah.
Oh,
So
it.
that was super chilling to see that. I don't know what the hell's going on with me and Alvin Schwartz, but I will
Yeah,
get to
there
the
is
bottom of this.
something. We must know.
And with no further ado, I want to read one of these stories. As we sort of prefaced Ashley and Lauren before this show, we are not trying to copyright infringe on any of these stories. So I do want to say, go buy the book, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz. It's an excellent book. You should own it. We're just reading small excerpts from this. And as he said himself, these are tales that belong to more people than just him. They are folklore. And it's kind of like Johnny Cash's whole catalog of music.
Yeah.
Didn't really write it.
For the listener at home, Lauren, and she turned the
Vanished.
lights off to
I
set
have
the mood.
vanished. I'm having a lot of technical issues, but just continue on.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't mean to call attention to it. I thought you were like purposely getting in the mood, so I was like, I thought it was really cool.
Wait, no, it seems like
No,
the
I
ghost of-
actually might leave the light off because it's kind of spooky. No, but I'm gonna figure this out. I promise.
Well, while you get figured out, I'm going to play the music for this story, and then Caitlin, why don't you take
also
it away?
I feel like your technical difficulties it's
That's
just a little
true.
too synchronistic
Yeah.
because we were just talking about Dinah, and like between Dinah and the ghost of Nelson Mandela, I had like so many technical problems the week that my cat was like dying, and she went from like being very healthy to just like everything sort of turned around, and I knew she was just ready to leave.
Oh.
And what? Ooh. And
Did
literally,
you guys see that?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
That
And I
was
was just
creepy
gonna
as fuck.
say, literally the whole week that she was dying, I had, and it's in our Zoom recordings, the lights in my room would be flashing on and off constantly during Zoom recordings.
Caitlin, this is so weird.
Did
like,
you-
literally everything started happening when you started talking about Dinah. I kid you not. Like my computer started like whacking out. Like I had it.
Holy
I have
shit.
chills.
Yeah.
I
I
had
am
it plugged
covered
in, but then
chills.
it suddenly was like, I'm dying, and you have to like. So I was trying to fiddle with the plug, and then my light went out.
You
What
guys,
if, like,
we
we-
might.
Flash?
What if in the Zoom room, like all of a
It's-
sudden, like
It's
there was
my
like a
ring
fifth person?
light.
Oh,
I don't know why it's doing
Oh.
that. Like I keep trying to turn my ring light
that
on.
is so creepy looking. That's like something from fucking Seven or some shit.
Also, can we talk about how white my teeth look for a second?
All you can see are your teeth and your headphones.
Shout out to our sponsor, Wisp Tooth.
Get the whitest teeth.
Yeah.
Wisp.
Dinah-
well, I might have
Dinah-
to be in the dark. Sorry, guys.
Dinah, if you're listening, if you are working in tandem with Nelson Mandela to help us switch our our timeline, I don't know. I guess do whatever you want with the lights. I think it's fun. I think you're having a good time, guys. Okay, so sorry, your face appeared, and I was like,
I turned up the brightness on my computer to be my light because I don't
Yeah.
think my ring light is gonna come back on. So
well, literally, they had to come and replace the fucking 2 circuit breakers in my power box after she died. Like,
you
the
guys, what is
electricians had-
happening?
it's wild. I don't know. Dinah is a powerful wizard.
Dinah's super powerful. Like she's over here. She's over here in Culver City doing something.
What if Dinah is Alan? Wait, is his name Alan?
Alvin.
Alvin.
I was like, who's Alan?
And
What
Alvin
if she's Alan?
is Nelson Mandela. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense.
No, that couldn't work.
No.
But Dinah could be Alvin.
Dinah could also be Nelson Mandela.
I like that. I like that Dinah's Nelson Mandela. I want to go with that theory.
No, but I already had her in 2013, but I did get Prince. Okay, we're gonna read Cold as Play. Eric,
You know what?
You need-
Having a scary technical issue on my end as well.
Now everyone's gonna use that as an excuse.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm gonna start excessively drinking wine now. I'm scared.
I wish I had a beverage because I kind of want to cry over here.
Cold as clay. A farmer had a daughter for whom he cared more than anything on earth. She fell in love with a farmhand named Jim, but the farmer did not think Jim was good enough for his daughter. To keep them apart, he sent her to live with her uncle on the other side of the country. Soon after she left, Jim got sick and he wasted away and died. Everyone said he died of a broken heart. The farmer felt so guilty about Jim's death, he could not tell his daughter what had happened. She continued to think about Jim and the life that they might have had together. One night, many weeks later, there was a knock on her uncle's door. When the girl opened the door, Jim was standing there. "Your father asked me to get you," he said. "I came on his best horse." "Is there anything wrong?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. She packed a few things and they left. She rode behind him, clinging to his waist. Soon he complained of a headache. "It ain't something terrible," he told her. She put her hand on his forehead. "Why, you're as cold as clay," she said. "I hope you're not ill." And she wrapped her handkerchief over his head, around his head. They traveled so swiftly that in a few hours they reached the farm. The girl quickly dismounted and knocked on the door. Her father was startled to see her. "Didn't you send for me?" "No, I didn't," he said. She turned to Jim, but he was gone. And so was the horse. They went to the stable to look for them. The horse was there. It was covered in sweat and trembling with fear, but there was no sign of Jim. Terrified, her father told her the truth about Jim's death. Then quickly, he went to see Jim's parents. They decided to open his grave. The corpse was in its coffin, but around its head they found the girl's handkerchief.
Yikes.
I like that one because it's a love story.
It is a love story.
Very
deep down.
romantic.
I also like how you say Jim.
Yeah,
Jim.
I know.
Jim. And the gravelly voice that you did, that gravelly voice was
Yeah.
awesome.
That's anytime I read a dad in our Goosebumps series, it's that voice.
Give them
like
a classic stay out of the basement.
Stay out of the basement.
Very nice.
That was a little different than usual, but that one felt more like a true dad.
Yeah, that sounded like my father telling me to get out of the
I
basement.
swear, Kelly, I'm staying out of the basement.
Is that from the Stay Out of the Basement, the one where the dad is like turning into a plant?
Yeah,
Oh,
which
yeah.
actually was like the best one that we found from the ones that we read.
Literary,
I
yeah.
loved that one.
Yeah,
Literarily. Yes.
and like it's oddly like the most erotic of all of them. Like the way that he wrote about like the plants and shit was very like
So much
I
moaning.
don't remember
Yeah.
that, but
So
I'm
much
excited
soft-
to reread.
There was always soft moaning and steam coming
Yeah.
from the basement.
Oh.
he would talk about like the
Uh.
plants. He'd be like they were moaning, they were softly moaning and like brushing up against our pale skin.
Eric, do you remember what number episode that was? Because
I
if,
need
don't
to
off
go
the top of my
listen.
head, but
Yeah.
I can pull it up before the end of the episode.
if you like my character acting, you will love me doing sexy plant voices in that one and moaning
I
erotically.
never noticed the sexual tones of that story, but now I can't
No.
wait to go listen to your episode.
Oh yeah, the episode in question is that's never mind. I almost just gave the episode for Phantom of the Auditorium, which was
Oh.
not a classic. Episode 27, Goosebumps Dissection number 4. Episode 27, Dissection number 4.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right. So next up, we are going to. I'm going
Well,
to read.
first,
Oh,
before
yeah, sorry.
we plow on, did anybody have any? Well, I guess we could tell yours, and then we could pick one to dissect for info or for symbolism.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right.
I'm going to read the classic Room from One More, also from the first book in the series. Ooh. Again, the scary. Room for One More. man named. There's unfortunately no smooth way to jump from one screen to the other.
Can you guys, for the listener at home who's listening, after this has been posted and not live, we really wanted to bring as much production quality to the live show
Yeah.
as possible, and so we're sacrificing a bit of post.
You know, it's probably not the smartest idea to have the producer jumping from a production cut to the reading.
This is showbiz, baby.
That's showbiz, baby. Oh
that
boy.
was so great.
You're getting a peek behind the curtain here.
That's
Seeing
right.
how it all goes down.
Seeing how the liver gets made.
Yeah. Ooh. Nicely done.
Hey.
All right. Actor getting into the scene. Room for one more. A man named Joseph Blackwell came to Philadelphia on a business trip. He stayed with friends in the big house they owned outside the city. That night, they had a good time visiting, but when Blackwell went to bed, he tossed and turned and just couldn't sleep. Sometime during the night, he heard a car turn into the driveway. He went to the window to see who was arriving at such a late hour. In the moonlight, he saw a long, black hearse filled with people. The driver of the hearse looked up at him. When Blackwell saw his queer, hideous face, he shuddered. The driver called to him, "There's room for one more." Then he waited for a minute or two before he finally drove off. In the morning, Blackwell told his friends what had happened. "You were dreaming," they said. "I must have been," he said, but it didn't seem like a dream. After breakfast, he went back to Philadelphia. He spent the day high above the city in one of the new office buildings there. Late in the afternoon, he was waiting for an elevator to take him back down to the street. But when it arrived, it was very crowded. One of the passengers looked out and called to him. "There's room for one more," he said. It was the driver of the hearse. "No thanks," said Blackwell. "I'll get the next one." The doors closed and the elevator started down. There was shrieking and screaming, and then the sound of a crash. The elevator had fallen to the bottom of the shaft. Everyone aboard was killed.
Ooh. That's one of my favorites.
That's one of my
That
is
is
my
a
favorite
spooky
as well.
one. But the thing is like kind of a happy ending. I mean, not for
'Cause he
everyone on the
survived.
elevator.
Jeez.
The
Like,
people on the
Ashley, it was-
elevator, no, not so much.
It
But
was
like
only
him,
happy for one guy.
I can't help but want to jump into the symbolism of that one because I feel like it draws on
Okay.
dreams and like premonitions.
Okay, I actually have a crazy. While you were, I don't know why I didn't think of this before. But I have actually thought of it while listening to your guys' podcast and wanted to tell this story to you guys specifically. So I'm really happy this is happening right now.
yay.
I actually had a very similar experience to this, and I was with an ex-boyfriend, and we had like, I can't even remember who had the dream, but one of us woke up one morning from this horrible nightmare and was like, I had a dream that we got into an Uber, like an Uber showed up for us, and we had accidentally said it was for one person instead of two, but it was like after a night of drinking, and so like we just got in and you sat on my lap, but it was like full of people and it was like way too crazy, and it was like 2 a.m. and they just like got in a crazy car accident. And I was like, that's fucked up. And I don't remember which one of us had this dream, but it was enough that we talked about it. And it was like kind of like chilling, like it was upsetting for whoever had it. And this was only like a year or two ago. I don't know why I can't remember who of us had this dream. And then literally like a week later, both of us were pretty absolutely hammered, like leaving a bar. And we called an Uber, and it showed up and it was full of people. And we were like, they basically were trying to get us to take it. They were basically, there's room for one more, and
Ooh.
they were trying to get us to come in. The Uber driver didn't care. He's like, yeah, come in. And I grabbed my ex and I was like, do you remember the dream? And he was like, and we were like, we're calling another fucking Uber right
Yeah,
now.
I'll take the next one.
Dang.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I'm not getting in that
happening.
one.
Yeah.
I had kind of a similar thing. Well, not really at all, but the same like dream and vehicle situation where I've told a story on the podcast, so I'll tell like a really short version of it. But basically, I had a dream that I was a passenger in my car, which at the time I never was, and that I had something in my hands, and so I couldn't use my hands. And a spider came
Oh, yeah,
down
yeah.
from the ceiling of my car in my face, and I couldn't get it because I didn't have hands, and like it was pandemonium, and there was an accident. So the next day, I was moving to a new apartment, and while we were at the like U-Haul place, I was there with my boyfriend at the time, and I saw like a spider decal, and I was like, "Oh, by the way, I had the weirdest dream about this spider in my car, and there was an accident, and blah 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 blah." So they didn't have the size truck that I needed, but they had like one of the like things that you could like hitch onto your car and pull. And I didn't feel comfortable pulling that. So my boyfriend at the time was like, "Okay, well, I'll just drive your car and I'll pull it." And I was like, "Okay." So we're driving to my new apartment in Van Nuys, and I was holding my snake in his little carrying cage, and I was a passenger in my car, which again I never was. And we're at a stop sign, and he actually starts saying, "Spider like in your dream, spider like in your dream." And I was like, what, and there's a spider. But here's the thing, the spider in my dream was that big, like it was enormous.
Yeah.
And this thing was, you could barely see it,
Uh-huh.
and it
But
like hung down right in my
But
face.
still,
But I
it
was
was
like
the dream.
super chill, just like rolled down my window, grabbed his web,
Uh-huh.
gently put him into the wind. But it was like, why did I have that dream? I don't think the pandemonium would have happened with
You
Right.
this
don't
tiny
know. I
little
mean,
creature.
if you were alarmed and you're holding a snake, that
True.
sounds
Oh, well,
scary
yeah,
enough.
true.
Yeah, maybe like the dream was preparing you so it wouldn't be a worse situation. Like
Yeah.
maybe you would have flipped out a little more had it not been like spider like in your dream, like remember, and
Yeah,
it all came
remember?
back.
Mm-hmm.
And even the
Yeah.
fact that you saw that decal, it's like such a mystical experience all around.
Yes.
Like you
Yeah.
were really like getting pulled into the timeline where you didn't die.
Hmm.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I-
prophetic dreams
I-
are so fascinating. I've never
Yeah.
had one, but like Ashley's had a couple, and I like it blows my mind that she has had like such predictive dreams that something either exactly like what she dreamt happens or something so close, like so similar that it's like that can't be coincidence.
It's
just
very
insane.
possible. Yeah, it's very possible too that you've had them and you just don't remember them, but
Yeah.
they
That's
prepared you
true.
for something.
Exactly.
I recently had a friend post on Facebook, and he's very like he likes to. He's like the only person our age that I post on Facebook consistently that gets things going. That I'm always just like, "You're man, I actually like being on Facebook when you're around. Like this is cool." But he was like, he basically said like, "I love talking about dreams, and I think it's like such a sign of someone who's totally unempathetic and lame who thinks that everyone else's dreams are boring." And it has totally become this trope in our culture of people being like, "Ugh, dreams are I hate listening to other people's dreams are so boring." I totally think that this is fucking brainwashing that has been done. Same thing with like magic and witchcraft and like alternative medicine, like all kinds of things that have been brainwashed into us, like to make us believe that like, oh, this is just like
They're
ridiculous and
stupid or
stupid,
boring.
because it's empowering and because it could help us take the control back over society and economics.
Well, dreams are also just really interesting in general. Like even if
Right.
they aren't prophetic and they no spiritual woo-woo stuff is involved, when it's just simply like, okay, let's break this down.
Yeah.
Like what does this mean? Like for example, like teeth falling out is usually a financial worry. Like if
Oh.
you're worried about your finances, you'll dream about your teeth.
I thought that
falling
had to
out.
do with like if you're like self-conscious of like your image or something like that.
I think that too, like
All
if
the-
your nose falls off or
I was
your
gonna
teeth
say, I
falls
thought it was
off.
something
kn-
like if you have like something distorted on your face, that means you're anxious about your appearance, or like a nose or an eyeball like falls out.
Well, you know what-
Like oh,
Or you just have like a bunch of spider eggs in your face.
you know,
Nah.
just a big zit that pops into spiders. Alvin Schwartz.
Which, by the way, just side note, I watched Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark today.
Oh, yeah,
the
you
movie.
were saying
Me
that.
too. But
Yep.
the other day, yeah.
I watched it today because I was like, we're gonna record tonight, so I want to watch it because I haven't seen it yet, and
That
I
scene.
could not watch the spider in the face scene. I
Was that the one you
literally
were saying
watched,
like you
this.
covered your yeah?
It's horrific. It's so scary, gross, disturbing, all of the things. It was rough.
Have you both seen the original Poltergeist?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys like this?
Oh, when
Does
he-
it fuck you up when he picks out his face until it's just
Yep.
like a skeleton?
Yeah, not a huge fan.
Not my favorite scene. Not my favorite scene at all.
Not my favorite.
That's like my favorite scene. I love it.
I actually had an experience like not that long ago where I was sitting there. Dinah. For the listener at home, we got a little Dinah wants me to tell this story apparently because she just flashed.
Dinah, you
but-
go towards the light. Lauren, you don't.
Oh my god, no.
Donna,
The only reason
come
I feel
into the light.
Yeah.
I feel semi safe is
Heroin.
because my dad is in town and he's actually on the couch next to me, which is hilarious. He's just sleeping through everything. So I feel a little
That is
more
hilarious. Also, Dinah is like the sweetest haunting in the world.
I don't feel scared by I don't think there's anything like menacing in here right now. I'm just more like, whoa, something's going on.
It's so crazy that that started happening as soon as because like literally right before the show, I brought that up with Eric and we were talking about how we should go back to the video recordings that we have before we were broadcasting the videos of all the that whole week when we were recording because my lights, it was like it looked like we were filming like a horror movie on Zoom because
Wow.
like my lights would just be flashing on and off and I'd just be like, I don't know.
I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh.
Fuck, what was I gonna
I know. I'm
say?
so sorry for the interruption.
No, don't be sorry. You're a guest on our podcast. You're here to speak. I don't remember though.
Was it about
Eric,
dreams?
yeah, it'll
How they
come to
last
me.
for so long, even after you're gone.
Yeah.
I know you love
You know me and
soon you'll see.
What a good song. You're a man for me.
And I
I was meant for you.
Dun, 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 dun,
Oh my gosh, should we form a band?
dun. You guys, did we just start?
I'll
a
play
band?
the like symbol or the
Those, like,
triangle or
tambourine?
something because I don't have any musical talents.
Not
Tambourine or egg shaker for sure.
Or you can be the hype girl.
Yes.
not to
Oh,
get
just-
like too
You're
deep
just
on a
doing this in the
tangent,
background.
but I highly suggest everyone go you look up on YouTube the time that Jessica Simpson and Jewel played that song together in concert.
Oh,
Have you seen it? Jessica Simpson
Nope.
like decides to like she wants to kind of like scat and like she wants to like do her impersonation, but I think what she
It's-
thinks that Jewel
Oh.
does. And it's
Oh,
very much like,
no.
oh, going down, sweet the horizon." And I'm not exaggerating. That's like actually what she's doing for like a solid 2 minutes. It's
Oh
incredible.
no.
It's a hard watch and it
Yeah.
feels like it won't end.
And
Oh,
isn't
no.
Jewel like giving her stink eye during it? Or is that not
I don't. I'll have to rewatch it. There is a different video where Sting is the guy, I forget his name, but whoever wrote Feliz Navidad did a cover of Sting's Every Step You Take or Every Breath You Take, and it's at this award ceremony where Sting is did your lights just go out too, Caitlin? Oh, okay.
No. I
Oh,
just
I was like-
it's
I was like-
Jose Feliciano wrote
Yeah.
Feliz Navidad.
You also watch that YouTube. He does a cover in front of Sting at this award ceremony that is for Sting, like a lifetime achievement thing. And Sting, he's like doing it. God bless this guy, but he's doing it in a very specific, weird style. And Sting is literally like sitting there, like like he looks like he wants to crawl out of his like fucking skin.
Oh,
It's very uncomfortable to watch, but also fun.
gotta
Anywho,
look it up.
Caitlin.
Sorry, this is on that tangent. Very quick story though. I went to Coachella one time in my life. It was
Which year?
the year that that Sugar Man documentary came out.
Okay.
And he was performing at Coachella.
Yeah.
for some
Okay.
reason. And he almost walked off stage because he didn't like his band.
Ooh,
It
that's
was un-
rough.
It was
I
uncomfortable.
I
for a
heard
long
about that.
Anyway, okay, so I also wanted to go over quickly. Well, first of all, do we have any other takeaways from the Room for One More as far as just like deep literary insights?
Or
Like
even
deeper.
the Cold as Clay too.
Cold as
Yeah,
Clay.
oh,
I
Cold
was
as Clay.
wondering-
Yeah, that
Oh,
one
yes.
is like classic in my opinion. Like a premier top shelf like classic urban legend, especially one that like is a little bit more romantic.
Mhm.
You know, there's a lot of those like and that felt like a lot like a more like traditional or more antique version, but like in the 1950s it kind of transformed into like, oh, he picked her up on the way to like the soda shop or to the sock hop, and then like he went to her mother's house and he found out she hasn't been alive in 30 years kind of thing. Like there's a lot of like those things, and I find those stories very endearing as far as like urban legends go.
Well, I find this one interesting because there's no real payoff at the end. Like there's no reason that he brought her home even. It's not like, oh, her mother was dying and she didn't know, and so he went to go get her and he rode her across the country. It was like he just brought her back kind of randomly and just wasted everyone's time. But I
Dang.
I did
just as an inconvenience.
yeah. I did find it really like it's this one for some reason as a kid. I remembered this one more vividly as I was rereading these than a lot of the other ones, and I was trying to think of why. And I do think it was partially like the romantic imagery behind it.
Yeah.
And also I liked that it's less horror and a little more mystery.
Definitely.
It's like how it's so unexplainable, and I feel like it's the kind of unexplainable that like actually happens in real life. Like obviously not to this degree, but things like this do fucking happen, as far as like something gets moved from someone who's dead already, or my cat goes and haunts Lauren's ring light.
We don't know why. We don't know why.
It reminded me of, and I don't remember if this was in the book. I know it's not in the original movie, but it's in the remake of the Amityville Horror, the one with Ryan Reynolds, where the little girl in the house has a little like stuffed animal with like one eye, and eventually the priest sees it and he's like, you don't understand. I was there the day we buried that little girl, and she was buried with that doll.
Yes.
And like all of a sudden this family moves in, and now the little girl has the doll, and it's like, ooh.
How did that happen?
I don't want to get in. I've told the story maybe like twice now on the podcast, but I will say for Lauren and Ashley, when I was much younger, my mom after
you should tell it in full, because those were really early episodes you told the story.
So after my parents divorced, my mom, single mother, struggling, had to move into like this like small house deep in the East Bay in Concord, California, and she at the time she was just going through a lot, and she was still at the time there was split custody, so we would be at my dad's house. And when I was there, this was like a house that she was just renting, and so like in the garage there had been like a couple things from the previous tenants stuff there, including like these toys. And so I started playing with the toys, and she
Sorry, that was so creepy seeing a person walk behind you.
That's just the resident demon. Don't even trip.
It's just my demon. They're fine.
Yeah. I was playing with the toys, and she was just kind of like creeped out by it, because like they were like the previous owner's toys, and she ended up like saying like no, like she put them back, because it was like there was the stuff sorry, I'm like rambling on here. The garage was like full of like the previous owner's stuff because she was renting from them, so it was kind of like all stuff that's supposed to be like hands off anyways. And a side note to the story is that around the time that she'd moved in, like all the neighbors would like come up to her and they'd be like, oh, so like you moved into that house, huh? Like a lot of like that kind of talking. And they would always like, if she would invite them over, they would be like, they would never come over to her. Like they'd be like, no, come over to our house. A lot of like that kind of shit. And the house my mom had like realized there was like light switches that were kind of low to the floor. There was like handlebars like installed in the shower. There was crutches there, so clearly there was someone who was probably like disabled who had lived in that home. And so my sisters and I used to love playing with the crutches, especially because like we're kids, so we'd be like running around with them. She was like, "Stop! Like, don't do that." And she would keep finding the toys and the crutches in my room, and she would like yell at me. And there was many things that I did bad in the day, but like one of them was, if she had told me like to leave them in the garage, I would have. And I was like, Mom, I'm telling you, like I didn't grab those toys, but they kept appearing in my room. And so one day she saw them again, and she went to go like yell at me, and then she realized that we were at my dad's house that weekend. And that same weekend, she heard one of us screaming, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," from like across the house. and she started like losing her mind. Like she was just like, and a part of it, she was like she was telling her friends like, I don't know if it's just because like of the stress of going through this divorce or what. And so her boyfriend at the time told her like, it sounds like there's someone there, like a child who like something might have bad happened to them, especially with the way that the neighbors are all acting, stuff like that. So maybe you should go through with Sage. And so one night she did that, and when she was doing that, like she heard like the sliding glass door in her room opening and closing, all this like creepy stuff. And that night she felt like she felt like something like sleeping on her chest, like a pressure. And so she finally like she broke down like crying, and she started screaming, and she was like, I'm a mother, like if you're a child, like I'm here for you, but like you have to understand, like I have to be strong right now for my own children, like I can't be like fucked with like this. And she was like in the hallway and said this, and she felt like she saw this bright light just like shoot past her like a million miles per hour. She fell down on the ground, and the TV all of a sudden turned on, and then after that nothing ever happened in the house again.
Oh
Yeesh.
my.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Because
Yeah.
before you said that, I was like, this makes me think of those times where people are like, oh, yeah, I'm renting this house to you. It's all yours. And then they don't leave. They live in the walls and watch you.
Oh.
Yeah, they're like up in the ceiling and they
Oh my
come
gosh.
down when you're
No.
asleep.
Have you guys ever watched? Yeah, Lauren, maybe you're
like an
referencing
Arrested Development.
George
Just like
Senior.
Yes.
And I'll be bringing up those shrimp puffs for Pop Pop. And it's like, how many times do I have to tell the kid
Yeah.
the kebabs? Lauren, were you referencing that YouTube video where you can see like the woman who lives in the crawl space in that guy's apartment? She comes down at night. Oh
she
my
comes
gosh.
down when he's sleeping.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like you just gave me chills bringing that up again, because that is
When
what I was thinking of.
I watched it, sometimes I have to like watch, like like when something fucks you up so much, you have to like watch it again, because you're like, I have to like exercise that in my system. I'd watch it like 2 or 3 times because it was so fucked up. But for Caitlin and Ashley, this guy, he kept noticing that like, I don't know what he noticed, but it was like his food rations would go down.
Missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he like set up like a camera one night, and there's like this like, I don't know how to describe it, but like above his kitchen, there's like this like spot where like a lot of people's where they would maybe put like vases or like decorative pieces, and like it just goes deep in, like it's like this huge hollow space. And at night, this woman would like crawl out of there, and she like would use like she would eat his food, she would go piss in a sink, which was like really unfortunate thing.
Horrific.
And then she would like crawl back up there, like using like the fridge and these other things as props. And it was because like I think it was in New York City. It was like it was just a rent thing, really. It was just like she couldn't afford living where. But it was seeing her crawl down, like because he saw it, like he like did like a YouTube video about it, and like imagine the feeling when you go to watch that one day. And you see that.
And knowing that you're just like sleeping in the other room and shit.
Yeah. And if you're like watching it while you're at home and you're like, wait, she's up there right now. And I like have watched her crawl into my house. Like I just cannot handle it.
Have you guys seen, what was that movie in the 90s or maybe in the 80s, but where the guy is like living in the walls and he watches the family?
There's Housebound.
Who is?
I know what you're
Under the
talking
Stairs?
about.
Is it People Under the Stairs?
No, great movie though.
Okay.
Oh, one of my
It is a
favorites.
good movie.
Wes Craven.
Yeah, because there was that, and then there was
Who's the
Housebound, but that one's more new. It was in New Zealand.
No. This was because who is the guy? I feel bad saying this, but he's the actor who is famous for being a little crazy. He's a little unwell. He's big, like hulking. He has the like really light blonde hair. God, I'm not going to remember his name now. He was in Point Break. Hold on, guys. I know this is fun for the audience to listen to me and try to pull this guy's name. But, Gary Busey.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
thinking Jake Busey, his son.
Yeah. Gary
Should've
Busey,
known.
there is like a great movie in the 90s where it's like a thriller more than anything else, but he like is living in the walls. It's like, I think he's the carpenter or something like that. And so he built the house. So then he also built like these walls within a wall so that he could watch the family when they moved in and stuff like that.
I hate it. I hate it all.
They should revisit that like genre again. That would be a really creepy movie to go back and redo.
Yeah.
I'm remembering like a scene from a movie where, I wish I could remember. My memory is just awful, but it's like a scene where they discovered like someone. Oh, maybe it was like an episode of X-Files or something where there was
Oh,
someone
yeah.
hiding in the wall behind the bathroom sink
Ugh.
and
That
like
yeah,
had
So
you're
were
right,
they like
Candyman
Caitlin.
watching
set
through the
up.
Yeah,
mirror?
because then I
Is it
remember that.
Candyman?
Yeah, in the mirror, like there was like a little hole, and they could see the little pin of light.
Yeah.
I can totally picture Fox like discovering that, and I don't remember what episode that was.
Yeah. It was definitely an X-Files
Yeah.
episode. I'm literally like starting to get that feeling, when you're in a
Me
room and like
too.
you want to like look over your shoulder constantly and be like,
No.
You guys,
I've already been doing that because of the lights.
Lauren and
Like, what
Ashley,
is-
you guys. Well, when you guys record now since COVID, do you guys record together still, or do you guys do it via Zoom?
Sadly, separately. We don't even get on Zoom. We do it over the phone.
Because I've
Yeah.
probably have been on like at least like 120, 150 Zoom calls with Caitlin now.
Oh, yeah.
And there have been times where like I have thought in the back of my head, like how fucked up would it be if like I saw her door open and like someone walk in? Like,
Thank you so much, Eric. for
I'm sure you
that.
thought of that before too, haven't you? Like, it's,
Well, and especially, yeah, you have that big, like, black door behind you. All I've been doing
Yeah,
is
the
staring
closet,
at it, to be
yeah.
honest.
I know. I was listening to your guys' Boogeyman episode, and it was funny because you were talking about how you always have to shut your closet door.
I must.
And I weirdly have to have my closet door open to sleep because but I check it before I go to bed. And it's weird because, again, since Dinah died, and Prince never used to do this, but when she was like really like starting to get sick and starting to pass away, really, she spent all her time in the closet, as
wow.
cats will do. Like they'll go into somewhere dark and
Yeah,
kind of
they'll go hide.
And ever since she died, and I also have an altar in my closet for like my dead, for like my mom and my friend that died when I was younger, and all my animals that have passed. And I
Right.
have like ashes there and like water and like all kinds of like really significant, like loaded items on that
Yeah.
altar. And Prince, every night when he comes in before bed, he'll like go into the closet and like come back out. And
He's
Eric
just
has
saying his respects.
literally, he's like,
Seriously.
Yeah.
like he's doing
Hello.
like his little
Hello.
Spectre
spectral
space.
ritual.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
you.
It's part of his
Well-
like perimeter check now.
on
Oh
a
my
cuter
gosh.
note, I do see, especially when like all her lights are on, a common thing that happens on our Zoom recordings is her cat will come in the room, but all you can see is his tail, and it's very like
Just
hook
going
shaped.
by.
So it's like
He has
yeah,
the
it's like
cartoon
Jaws, like,
hook tail too.
Yeah.
So it looks like a little submarine periscope.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
always think.
Yes.
It's like
It's like,
walking around the bed.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
Are you guys on TikTok?
I have a TikTok.
This is a
I-
common. This gets brought up a lot by other guests of ours,
Man.
especially typically younger ones.
Well, I mean,
Fair.
I joined like last month and I can't stop watching. But there's a new trend going on. There's a new like effect that you can use that senses movement. So like if you move, like it turns like
Oh, yeah,
it's like
yeah.
a rainbow.
Yeah.
And people are using it to like try and find paranormal activity in their home. Like they're like, okay, I don't see
Really?
anything, I don't see anything, and then all of a sudden you see the shape of a person
Like sitting
like,
in a
sitting
chair.
in a chair
Yeah.
or
Like the
like
guy's
in the
dad, yeah.
doorway.
It's
Oh.
crazy.
And it's like legitimately scary, and
It's
I don't
really
know
spooky.
how you would fake it. I mean, how like
Well-
the normal, like average person would fake it.
Is
That's
it
hap-
is it real, or is it people? Is it young kids who are like, all right, Dad, like sit in that chair, like just to get like views?
No, because it's like a through. It's usually it's like a through video of them just kind of like scanning the room, and like they'll have people there
Oh.
with them, and like the images will like come and go.
Ooh,
So it's
that
not
is
even
fucked
like
up.
a heat sensor thing. It's a movement thing where it senses like movement of some kind.
Oh, we're
and
doing
it's
that
mixed
for sure.
ages. It's not just like little like high school kids or junior high
Yeah.
kids. They'll be like adults or a woman who will say like, my husband passed away last year, so I wanted to try this effect. And she'll scan her room and then see movement like by a window, and you're like, well, what else could have done that? There's nothing over there. It's really creepy.
I'm
Or
sorry, I
like
didn't mean
a
to-
lot of people are bringing it into like cemeteries, and there's so many
Really? What's it?
that are popping up in the
And
cemeteries.
it has to be through TikTok for this effect.
I think,
think
so.
so.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
it's one of their new effects.
Oh, I'm
Guys,
doing that for
just
sure.
buckle down
Just
and join
do
TikTok.
it.
It's a
Just
good
do it.
time.
You know,
It's fun.
I have seen on Snapchat, like I don't use really Snapchat ever, but I've gone in and out of phases of it, I guess. But those filters, and I mean, they have the same ones on Instagram, like the animal
Mhm.
faces and like the dog face. I
Yeah, where,
remember,
like a dog face will appear like
love it.
here.
Like
yeah,
nowhere.
it'll
yeah.
be like right next to your fucking face, and I'm like, what the fuck is that?
What is that?
What? I don't want to take a
Phantom
picture
dog.
with you.
Well,
I
imagine
love it.
being a ghost and like just like that's like the most amount of entertainment you get as a ghost. You're like, I just hope that they get that fucking filter on my face.
Like,
They're
the
like trying
puppy
so hard to like
finally
get in
landed
with
on
you,
my
like
face.
yeah. Like I love this filter. Because we always assume, ghosts. It's always like you immediately think creepy, but it's like if I'm a
They're just
ghost, like I'm
hanging.
just hanging out. I'm waiting for someone to hang out on Zoom or TikTok.
That's true.
Caitlin,
Well, but
I know
it's
you're.
creepy because they're like trapped on this plane and they
Mhm.
just want to be free. That's
You
what's
look.
creepy
You
about
keep
it.
looking like you're trapped on a plane because, like, I know your whole body's like blue and great. Look at that.
The flashing
It
lights.
actually does look creepy because it's like blue, kind of. All right.
It's because the background of the web browser is dark.
Mm.
Some things are not paranormal, but just normal.
Did you want to talk about? Did we want to talk about Just Delicious or? I almost said Howard.
Harold.
Yeah.
Well, because I feel like
Harold.
Harold is like the number one. Like, if you ask someone what the scary story is,
Mm-hmm.
It almost
Harold.
always pops up.
Mhm.
yeah. And for me, when I was younger, because Harold's the one. Are we gonna read it? We're just summarizing
We're
them,
gonna
right?
just talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, Harold is
Okay.
a bit long.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay.
we're not.
I
yeah.
thought so.
Ashley, do you want to give
So-
the summary of it?
So
yeah. So
okay, go ahead.
well, because basically it's about these. I think they're farmers. I don't know
Yeah.
if they're brothers
Yeah.
or what, but they have this scarecrow.
I don't know
that
who
they
the
name
fuck they are.
Harold.
Yeah.
I don't know
They're
who
brothers,
these guys
like-
are.
I think it's funny because as I was rereading these, I did notice a couple like sort of ambiguous relationships between like same-sex people, and I was like, maybe these are like early folklore gays. So I like the
Totally.
canon that Thomas and Alfred are just like old lovers that have a farm.
Well,
I
the
think we
thing
should go
about
with that.
them and what's scary about this story, so basically they just like abuse this scarecrow. They take all their aggressions out on him and they beat him and they rip his stuffing out and it's really horrible. And eventually the scarecrow gets fed up and skins them alive and puts their skin on the roof to dry out. And but the thing is when I was little, the scariest part to me and even as an adult was how fucked up they were to him. Like
Yeah.
the thing is like if they didn't do that, like they would have moved on to puppies and kittens and then
Right.
adults. Like they were budding serial killers. The
Yeah,
way they
The
were treating
violence
this
they were
scarecrow.
showing towards him was like, well,
Yeah.
why? Like, why? Because there was
What the
so much
fuck?
buildup of like day after day showing their aggression. It was like, what was wrong with you guys? You're the
Yeah.
Wow, what's up, guys?
This is one short excerpt from it. Whenever something went wrong, they took it out on Harold. They would curse at him, even kick or punch him. Sometimes one of them would take the food they were eating, which they were both sick of, and smear it on the doll's face. How do you like that stew, Harold? He would ask. Well, you better eat it or else. Then the two men would howl with laughter. Yeah, I think what is fucked up about it and what kind of like reads as traumatizing is it reads like when you're reading about like people who are abused in their like domestic situations and how they're
Yeah.
treated, especially when
Mhm.
it's like a whole family treating them a certain way.
Mhm.
It like really reads like that kind of abuse, and it's very disturbing.
It's
And
upsetting.
honestly, in the end, we should thank Harold because
Yeah,
he just
good job.
thwarted two future serial killers.
Thanks for getting rid of those assholes, honestly, Harold.
I will say too, when I was a kid and even now as an adult, I still one of the creepier aspects is how nonchalant like the very last like line is, like, and it doesn't like explicitly say like that he killed Thomas, but it just says like he just says that he sees fucking he sees Harold on the roof laying out like fresh bloody skin to dry in the sun, which like that image it conjures up like the idea of like very far away, like, and like from across the valley that you can kind of just see that your scarecrow is like laying out the flesh of your friend, like in the way that it's written, so like kind of just it's very like this is what happened, like it's that is fucked up, like it
Yeah,
gives me
totally
chills.
appropriate for a 10-year-old
Yeah.
to read.
I know, for children's books.
Well, and that's one thing that I was wondering if they were going to go through with, because Harold's kind of the first thing that you see. I won't give any spoilers for the Scary Stories movie, but that's kind of the first story that sort of comes to life in the movie. And I was
Comes
like,
to
okay,
life.
like how dark are they going to go with this? Because in the book, he
Mhm.
skins them alive.
Yeah.
And I know that this is sort of a kids movie. It sets it up right away. It's like, oh, this is going to be very dark. This is going to
Yeah.
be as dark as
The movie
Yeah.
kicks off with it. Yeah. And that's another it's similar to the books. Like this movie was supposed to be more geared towards young people. And then I think Ashley told you guys this already, but like it's creepy.
It's dark.
It's a
Yeah.
very spooky movie.
I'll have to
I
check it
was
out.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Wasn't
Yep.
the screenplay adapted by Guillermo del Toro?
Oh yeah.
Correct.
Was it?
He
I
was
know that he
involved.
was
He was
involved.
very
I don't
heavily
know what he
involved.
did. And you can tell by the creature design. Like obviously they're based off of the illustrations from the book, but they're very much so Guillermo
Like the
creations.
story The Dream, do you guys remember? And it's the image of the woman with the black
Yep.
hair and black eyes and
Oh,
like the
yeah.
big
One
puffy
of the-
body.
The
Like
pale lady.
Yeah.
yes, the pale lady from The Dream that
Ugh.
comes to life in a
That-
way in the movie that is like, mwah, it's very well done.
That image, that particular illustration, I should say, from the books, might be when I was a kid, might have been like the most effective at being scary because of the fact that it's not as like jaggedy or like just straight demonic, but that's in a way it's because like, you know, when you're a kid and you're laying there in the dark and you're like, what am I going to see? I feel like I was more afraid of seeing something like that, like something that felt like more like
Yeah.
what I might actually open my eyes and see. Because the other stuff was just so fantastical that I was like, I'm probably not going to see like demon, fucked up creature, night sky, demon, hawk. But I was like, I'm going to see puffed up like Jill showing up out of nowhere. Like,
Puffed up Jill. She's coming for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was like not quite human,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
but she had enough human features.
Yeah. Well, and when you're
yeah,
like
it's
really
creepy.
young, you know, like when like sometimes you'll wake up from a nap, like if like there's family functions and there's like an aunt you don't know, and you're like starting to figure out that like people are all different. Like there's just it felt very much what it's like to be a kid, and like you're starting to like I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess what I'm saying is that I have some really creepy ass aunts or something.
I know. I was gonna say, good thing your mom doesn't listen to this podcast.
That was great.
Shouts out, mom. One day.
Shouts out.
One day.
We'll get you one day. One thing about Harold that I did want to note, Eric, for anyone who listened to our Night of the Living Dummy episodes, it did kind of remind me a little bit of that. But I wish Night of the Living Dummy was as short as the story.
I was
Harold.
literally gonna say that if you didn't. That's exactly what I was gonna say if you didn't.
I know the other one we wanted to talk about or touch on was Just Delicious, and that's
Yeah.
sort of the same thing as Harold, where like there is that scary like murdery and like cannibalism aspect, but also what's scary is that this woman's getting abused by her husband,
Yes.
Yeah.
and like eating a dead man's liver is like better than like not having food.
Not having cooked him
Yeah.
something. She's
Right.
like, I
him.
have to have dinner, so I have
Yeah.
to sacrifice
So-
somebody
Ugh.
else.
So the
I hate it.
TLDR for Just Delicious for the listeners at home is basically a woman is married to a gentleman, not a gentleman,
piece
a
of
man
shit.
named a monster named George Flint, and it just starts out George Flint loved to eat. And so then it says each day at noon he closed his camera shop for 2 hours, which I really thought reminded me of like the whole Goosebumps series, because they're always like R.L. Stein loves to just throw in a random profession like at the
Yeah.
beginning of the books, and it never gets addressed again.
True.
But yeah, so he's talking about how like the George was a bully and Mina was a timid woman who did everything he asked because she was afraid of him. And basically one day he gets a liver and she cooks it for him, and she cooks it so well that she eats a slice and she can't stop eating it. She eats the whole thing, and then she realizes that it's all gone. But she there's a woman that had recently died next door in an open coffin, and rather than face her husband's wrath, she decides to just, mosey on over to the coffin and help herself to this lady's liver and feed it to her husband. So yeah.
You just kind of have to imagine how abusive he was, like to
Yeah.
make her that afraid
Like,
Yeah.
that
of
she was
what
that
he would
scared.
do if he didn't have dinner on the table. If he
Yeah.
didn't have
Yeah.
So dark.
And there is like a typical ghost scare at the end where like the woman's voice comes, and it's sort of like the toe story where she goes, "Who has my liver?" And she's
Mhm.
getting closer and closer, and then the end is the light went out and George screamed and screamed because she's like, "He has it." uh and that's supposed to be the scary part, but I think we all know and realize in our adulthood that yes, truly
Yeah.
the scary part is being trapped in an abusive relationship, and
The
yeah.
links that you will go to appease
Appease,
this
yeah.
person so that you don't get hit that day.
And
Yeah.
also, I mean, kind of a happy ending for the wife, though, because
Yeah.
it ends with, and he screamed and screamed.
Yeah.
So we know it didn't end well for him.
Yeah.
And I guarantee he had a life insurance policy
Uh,
that she got to cash out on.
Yes, girl, get your cash.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And she got the whole camera business.
She's in Monaco right now.
The budding camera business was now hers.
Oh, that's so funny.
A cabana
does-
boy is filling her drink up right now.
That's
It
right.
does remind me of that Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode where Dennis coaches the dog and feeds it
Yeah, to Mac
Mac.
when they live
Yeah.
in the,
Oh my gosh.
in the
yes.
suburbs.
when they live in the
yeah.
suburbs. That's one of my favorite episodes. That episode actually does a good job of like showing like a descent into like a mental unwell being, or like just
like a
this
Chris Watts and
Yeah.
Shanann Watts situation. Oh God, not to disrespect those people. I apologize to anyone listening because I got really deep on that story yesterday, and it's haunting me and driving me crazy. And I honestly
Haunting.
I don't mind joking about dark shit, but I regretted that joke the moment it came out of my mouth just now. So, I'm disturbed. Color me disturbed.
Color me disturbed.
It wasn't you. The howling wind came back, and okay, regular Caitlin is back now. That was Nelson Mandela Caitlin.
Possessed her body.
Yeah.
Well, one real quick thing I want to do before we check back in with the ghost of Nelson Mandela at gmail.com is we had mentioned before the show of creating our own scary story to tell in the dark
Oh, yeah.
Lord.
with a classic story chain. So we're going to see how this goes. And let's do it in the order that you guys appear on my screen, which is Eric, me, Ashley, Lauren.
Okay.
Right, let's do it.
And is it
All
one
right.
word?
What's
So
that?
everybody says one word.
Just one word, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Once
There.
Was
A.
man
Who
owned
The.
cemetery.
did you say cemetery?
Yeah.
Okay.
period.
Period.
Unusual
Things
Started.
This is great
Two.
radio.
Unusual things started to.
Started to.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yeah.
Happen.
Mm.
Are we terrible at this?
Fucking
No, we're very
No,
good
I'm
at it.
frightened
Okay,
already.
just
honestly.
checking,
It
just
was-
checking.
This is terrifying.
Wait, who is it?
I think you
Ashley.
or Ashley.
Oh.
Ashley.
Oh,
who
it
goes?
was
Who
Eric.
goes after
Sorry.
Caitlin?
After Caitlin, it's Ashley.
Unusual things start to happen when
Oh, it's me. When the
Night.
Stay out of the basement. Can that be a line? Okay, when the night falls. What an amazing story. Wow.
Yeah.
Great job, guys.
What do you think were
We
the?
could also try worms. No, no one knows that one.
Worms.
Worms
No.
crawl
No.
in. Worms
oh yeah,
crawl
worms
out.
Yeah.
crawl out.
Oh.
Ugh, ugh,
What was
pee.
that? Do you guys remember? And it was
I
like
don't know
Yeah.
what
something
you're
about.
talking about.
Oh, it was a scary stories to tell in the dark, but it was like a poem or a song.
Mhm.
You remember how they
It was
had
a
like
song, I
songs
think, or
too?
something like that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it was like
The
worms crawl in and worms crawl out. Yeah, and it's something about like the jelly between your toes and like the pus pours out and like you put it on a sandwich and eat it. Like it's like the most disgusting
Mm.
thing you'll ever read.
Oh,
Kids like that stuff. That actually speaks
Yeah.
to children.
I remember rereading this one. It's like towards the beginning. I also like the one that he's just repeatedly saying, "Me tie Dodie Walker."
Yeah.
Just like,
That's in the movie
The,
too,
uh,
very
Yeah.
briefly.
The
Me tie Doty Walker.
what does it mean?
I like the
Never know.
fact that on the first chapter, like I like that he gave like notes, kind of like he'd be like, all right, and then like, cause like kind of like the liver one where it's just like, who has my liver? Like a lot of the like beginning book or a lot of the beginning stories were like ones where like it'd be getting closer, this or that, and then be like in parentheses, it'd be like, now turn to the person closest to you and grab them and be like,
Yeah.
ah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, which is
they
really-
give you directions.
Yeah, in the first chapter, it's all about like, here's like what you'll do. It's like, so then like you keep like the head rolls down the chimney, and then it's like you grab your friend, you're like, oh, I'm a fucking head.
I'm a fucking head.
Also, I feel like we have to shout out to some of the ones that were funny. Like, do you guys remember the Viper?
Yeah.
The
Mm.
Vindo
Wait,
Viper.
The Vindo
Yes.
Yeah,
Viper.
yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that one.
And
I
there
like
was
the
I
one.
tell
illustration
that
for that one.
story to this
Oh, I love
day.
it. And then the only other one I wanted to mention, I shouldn't even mention it because I don't remember it at all. But what's the one where they're like, "Get yourself a Band-Aid"? Like, does anybody?
Oh
know
yeah.
what I'm talking
Okay,
about?
so that's
I
Bloody
don't know that one.
Fingers, and I do want to
Bloody
quickly,
Fingers.
because I did get some. I reached out to the listeners to see, and I got a lot of people who were saying like my favorite story was like Harold, this and that. But I want to give a shout out to Rach, who sorry guys, I didn't pull it up quick enough, but she said that when she was a kid, she would actually read the story to her class, and she said, my scary stories to tell in the dark tale. I was obsessed with the Bloody Finger story in 4th grade and literally made friends after knowing no one in my class by telling it and holding a flashlight to my mouth on class trips to Monterey. I'd paint my nails red and use fake blood for the occasion.
Ooh.
Isn't that
That's
badass?
awesome.
That's so sick. That is Rachel from Birds of Paradise.
Hell yeah, I would
Friend
be
of
your
the show.
friend.
Yeah, she sounds great.
Yeah, we would
Um,
have sat together on the bus.
Okay, I found the worms crawl in one.
Ooh.
What's it called?
It's called the Ursa.
Oh boy.
Don't you ever laugh as the hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. They wrap you up in a big white sheet from your head down to your feet. They put you in a big black box and cover you up with dirt and rocks. All goes well for about a week, and then your coffin begins to leak. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, the worms play pinochle in your snout. I don't know. Or snout. I don't know what pinochle is. or
Pinnacle?
pinochle? What's that? They eat the jelly, but they eat your eyes, they eat your nose, they eat the jelly between your toes.
That's it.
Iconic line. They eat the jelly between your toes. A big green worm with rolling eyes crawls in your stomach and out your eyes. Your stomach turns a slimy green and pus pours out like whipping cream. You
Oh,
spread it on a
God.
slice of bread, and that's what you eat when you are dead.
Whoa.
The whipped cream.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was. Mm-mm.
Ashley,
Not okay.
Ashley, you're right. That was Pinochle. I never knew that game. That's how it was spelled. I always took it to be like very phonetical, like P
Same.
and knuckle.
Like,
I never knew it looked kind of
Pinochle.
like Pinocchio. Lol.
now she has a flashing light.
Oh
I had to
shit.
turn my lights on. I was freaking myself out.
I mean, amen.
I'm-
Like, what has been going on?
I'm just hoping that oh shit, I just got a pop-up now on my computer.
Okay.
I
Says,
got a
congratulations, you have HIV.
maybe
No,
I'm
that'd be
gonna
my.
I'm gonna open it up. It's from the ghost of Nelson Mandela at gmail.com.
Oh shit.
Uh-oh. What's going on?
Okay, I can see him typing. He says he's really scared, but he thinks it might be working. Oh shit. Now he asked if I'm on WhatsApp. I'm gonna give him my OnlyFans link. I'm just gonna write him back with my Snapchat.
Oh.
All right. Oh my gosh.
My God.
Oh my gosh, guys. Caitlin. Oh my gosh. For the listeners at home, Caitlin just disappeared.
She's gone.
I'm
She's
I'm
completely
texting her right
gone.
now. Caitlin,
Make sure she's okay.
I'm texting her. I'm getting a text back. It's typing. There is no Caitlin here.
Only Zool.
Oh my god. You guys, we have to go save Caitlin. So on that
We gotta
note,
go.
I have to say goodbye, guys. We have to say goodnight because we gotta go save Caitlin. Ashley, Lauren, keep it weird real quickly. Do you guys have anything to plug before we go save Caitlin?
No, listen, just tune into our podcast this month because it's all Halloween, all spooky. Like we have an episode coming out Friday and Saturday that are all real scary stories with sound effects and music,
I'm
and
so excited.
it's terrifying. So
Come get
check
spooky
that
with
out.
us and keep it weird.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, on that note, Ashley, Lauren, thank you guys so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much
Thank you for having
us.
us. It was an
Caitlin,
honor.
if you're out there in the other
you are.
realms, thank you as always for being the co-host with Mo host. We're coming to get you, Caitlin. Good night,
Coming, girl.
guys.